Oh, no, 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 come on, man. Alright, ladies and gentlemen. This is one of those games that I wasn't really going to pick up day one. I'm still waiting for Sekiro, but this is one of those games I'm definitely picking up once I clear my backlog of maybe like 10, 15 games. Devil May Cry has always been a series that I've tried to really get into. I've had it on the plate for a while. It's just when you have a backlog and when you're an adult, you realize you start running out of time to play your video games like you were a little kid. So yeah, it's on the back burner for me, but I'm glad to know that this game that just came out is actually pretty awesome. And it's not just Devil May Cry. I'm actually really happy just for Capcom itself. Capcom's been kind of killing it. Resident Evil 2 Remake's been great. This game has been even greater. And I think as a company, these guys are really making some proper fucking releases. But sometimes you have these brilliant moments where it's a little bit of a why did that even happen kind of deal. Now, for me, microtransactions are one of those things that I'm not so totally against, but I'm not so totally for. I have a very, very, very for me, a microtransaction has to have a reason to really be there, and it has to be a compelling reason. For one, the only way that I can tolerate a microtransaction if it's done in a way like, say, Rainbow Six Siege, where the actual things are really cosmetic. You can only buy cosmetic upgrades anyways. You can't buy anything that will change the game for you and other players. And because of the microtransactions, the core updates and the content additions to the game are free. The only time I hate microtransactions are when you put them alongside a season pass and the core game. Like, this is not something that should be happening. Microtransactions in a free-to-play game are totally fine. If I'm paying $0 for Apex Legends and you want me to pay $10 for a gun skin, hey, you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm not buying your gun skin for $10, but I'm glad that the option is there, and there's going to be people that buy it because they put so many hours into the game, and it overall funds the development of the title for us. I'm okay with that. When I'm not really okay with it, and I have this weird sort of tinge against it, is when it's in a fucking single-player game. Now, don't get me wrong, I've definitely defended some single-player games with microtransactions before. Assassin's Creed Odyssey, to an extent, even something like Shadow of War, up until I got to the very last act of it. But for me, having microtransactions in a $60 game is still out there. It's the same reason why I don't put something like, say, AC Odyssey or Origins up there with Assassin's Creed 2. I consider it to be a little weird. You have a game that's fully featured complete, and a game that's also fully featured complete, but it has that store working against it. You can never get away from a video game that has an in-game store after paying $60 that says, buy this thing to get this boost or whatever. It does actually cheapen a bit of the value no matter what you look at it, whether it's all just perceptive or whatever or whatnot. Over in this game, after seeing things like red orbs and blue orbs being sold, at first glance, I was a little weirded out thinking that, is there a grind in the Devil May Cry games, which have always been traditionally shorter titles anyways? These are games that you could probably get through in 10-something hours. They're not long. They're probably Metal Gear length. Actually, a little bit more than Metal Gear length if you skip the cutscenes, but you get the point I'm trying to make. These aren't terribly long games. In fact, the benefit of them are actually getting high score, speed running, whatever you want to call it. There is certainly a very high replayability factor to it. But when I look at something like here, buy red orbs or blue orbs, which are used to purchase upgrades to your main character, it implies, even if it isn't true, some form of a grind to a game. It's the same thing I talked about with, say, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Whereas I don't feel a grind to the game, perceptively there is clearly a grind to the game somehow. Otherwise, why would the developers put any form of microtransactions into the game? The only time I've ever seen that completely proven to be true, though, is, say, something like Shadow of War, where once you get to that real final act, it's like a pretty terrible grind. A grind terrible enough for me to just uninstall the game and actually just watch a video on the internet and just basically keep that as my final little bit of a playthrough for that game. Great game up until the very end when it gets to that real grind fest of a title, when it turns full free to play on you. A full free-to-play $60, apparently. But this game has apparently received really great reviews, and I'm glad that it has, because for me, it's more important that this game gets good reviews, more so because of Capcom's sake than just anything else. And even with all that said and done, the addition of microtransactions to the game seems to not piss off the community at all so far, and that is also another thing that has to be masterfully fucking done, which again signifies that there isn't a level of blocking progress or gatekeeping or artificially raising the difficulty for the sake of selling these things too. And when that happens, it makes me wonder to an extent, what is ultimately the point of adding these in the first place? Because ultimately, when you add microtransactions into a $60 game, single player wise, perceptively, it ruins your reviews out there on the board, right? Like any game reviewer out there, anybody that sits in reviews, or any user review, they'll point that out. They'll definitely make it a point to have it in their head the entire time that the game, while I paid a premium price for it, has a fucking store into it like a free-to-play title. You get what I'm trying to say there? Like, perceptively, you're not reaching the 10 out of 10 because you've added that big, giant, like, bomb into the middle of your title. It just doesn't make any sense. When you don't need to do the grind, when the grind is so not required, you know, why are microtransactions still in the store? Even these microtransactions I'm actually far more okay with. At least they're not cosmetic-based microtransactions for a single-player game. Because if I had to play another video game where it took away the features to unlock costumes, you know, things that we had unlockables for back in the PS2, back in the PS3, 360 original Xbox days, it'd be another kick to my fucking penis right there if we had to still buy characters that we could have used to unlock. To me, I look at this simply like the original God of War games, you know, when you had to collect red orbs to level up faster into the game. It was a core progression mechanic of the game. It made you feel stronger. It was what you needed to do to upgrade Kratos to the end. And for me, I look at Devil May Cry as the same thing. Except over here, you know, you don't have to just earn experience points. You can outright fucking buy your XP points too. At least it's not to a point where certain types of weapons or whatever you want to call it were sold out through microtransactions too. It's just one of the weird little niches that Capcom, while they make a great title, they also include a way for you to have a little bit of a dick kick at the same time. It just doesn't really make any sense to me. And I'm glad at the end of the day, Devil May Cry 5 doesn't really have microtransactions either. From all I've seen of this game, it's been just 12 hours average of just awesome action. And at the end of the day, I'm glad that fucking Capcom is still doing right. You know, Capcom is a company, if you don't know, from not too long ago, they were definitely the fucking EA of video game development. These guys had absolutely no fucks given in video game development, and that's why for a while they were definitely considered Crapcom. But right now, to me, they're almost like this godly game publisher at this point. So kudos to Capcom for reviving a lot of these older franchises again. Mega Man even came out, and that was great. Devil May Cry is great. Resident Evil is really awesome. You know, the next set of fighter games that they're going to be releasing, hopefully it will be awesome. But I think in the future, looking forward, microtransactions for single-player $60 games, like Assassin's Creed or Devil May Cry 5 or something like this, needs to be reconsidered. You know, when you can have games like Cyberpunk 2077 come out, by CD Projekt Red, a game of that quality, we're talking like GTA 5 level production quality, even more, can come out with the promise of having no microtransactions, is proof enough that a company like Capcom, with the game development, while it is really high-end game development, is nowhere close to, say, you know, Cyberpunk 2077 at this point, or a lot of other AAA games, shouldn't also need microtransactions as well. When Sony can constantly release microtransaction-free exclusives year after year after year, I don't recall any exclusive last year, like Spider-Man, God of War, Detroit Become Human, shipped with microtransactions. When Microsoft, the token fucking exclusive king of microtransactions for some of their games, Halo 5, can release Forza Horizon 4 without any form of microtransaction or payment. Yes, it has car passes, whatever you want to call it, but no way for me to just buy credits outright pretty easily or that kind of stuff. When it can release microtransaction free, I expect a lot of single-player $60 games to release microtransaction free as well. At this point, I'm okay as a consumer with paying for DLC expansions. You know, there are a lot of reasons why microtransactions, to me, I don't agree with them at all, but if you were to just release a solid $20, even $30 expansion, like a big 15, 20-hour expansion to your game, I'd be down with that. That's where I'm okay. Because at that point, you reach a perfect equilibrium of getting the money required for developing the game, and also satisfying the consumer. You know, microtransactions will always be there to sort of dick around with the consumer, all that kind of good stuff. But ultimately, I need it to be a little more toned down, I would see, you know, in the perceivable future. We need to sort of reconsider this going forward. Anyways, that being said, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. I am out.